Alfa Romeo Stelvio proves that the impressive engineering used in the brand's Giulia saloon can also work in more challenging market segments. The premium part of the mid-sized crossover sector is certainly one of those. For customers in this class, this Milanese model promises character and real driving engagement.
The Stelvio sets out to bring more engaging driving dynamics than have ever previously been offered to buyers of mid-sized premium SUVs at this price point. That it can deliver on this remit is evident from the first few miles you spend at the wheel. The steering is quick and very responsive, the brakes are brilliant, and the stiff, sophisticated rear-driven chassis is aided by the car's relatively light weight, plus perfect 50-50 front-to-rear weight balance and structural rigidity that keeps body roll well in check. The brand's SDC adaptive suspension system is optional, and it's well worth having because without it, the ride is always rather on the firm side. All Stelvios get Alfa's DNA drive mode system so that you can tweak the throttle, the steering and the gear change timings to suit the mood that you're in. All the engines on offer are borrowed from the brand's impressive Giulia saloon, and as there, mainstream buyers will choose between two very different units. The 2-litre petrol turbo plant we're trying here is one way that you could go, and that's offered with either 200 HP or in the potent 280 HP form that we're trying here. But the vast majority of customers will prefer the 2.2-litre diesel, and that's available in either 180 or 210 HP states of tune. In both cases, you can expect competitive efficiency figures, 58.9 mpg on the combined cycle and around 124 grams per kilometre of CO2. All the engines have to be mated to an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and you can activate that with these deliciously emotive Ferrari-style paddle shifters. And talking of Ferrari influence, we should also mention the Maranello-engineered flagship variant, the storming 2.9-litre V6 Bi-Turbo 510 HP Quadrifoglio model, which storms to 62 miles an hour in just 3.8 seconds. Right, let's take a seat at the wheel. And what a disappointment it would have been if all the romance of the exterior had been compromised by a cabin fashioned as a pale pastiche of what the German brands already offer. It hasn't been. Instead, there's a cockpit that, to some extent at least, succeeds in combining classic Alfa charisma with modern functionality. Now, true, there are a few issues with fit and finish, especially with some elements of the switchgear, and this Italian SUV can't match its German rivals in terms of media connectivity, although the 8.8-inch centre dash infotainment display does work effectively. There's so much else that's seductive about this cabin though. The deeply cowled dials, the smart, thin-rimmed 3-spoke wheel, splashes of aluminium and huge, evocative gear change pedals behind the steering wheel that look as if they were originally designed for a Ferrari, and they probably were. Add in stitched leather and a bit of optional trim embellishment and the interior can look absolutely gorgeous. Now, when it's time to take a seat in the rear, taller folk might find access hindered a little by this swept-back roofline. Still, the rear door does open decently wide. And once inside, there's a lot more headroom than the sleek silhouette previously led you to expect. Legroom, though, isn't quite as good as in some direct rivals, although it is better than in a Porsche Macan. And a couple of tall folk sat behind a lanky driver will find their knees very close indeed to the scalloped cutouts that are indented into the front seat backs. Finally, let's take a look in the boot, accessible via a standard powered tailgate. That opens to reveal a 480 litre capacity. Now that improves on what you'll get in a Porsche Macan or a Volvo XC60, but it is a little smaller than other more obvious German class rivals. The backrest folds in a useful 40-20-40 split so that long items like skis can be pushed through into the cabin without disturbing rear seat passengers. Alfa Romeos tend to offer an endearing, refreshing, but sometimes slightly confusing mix of virtues. And this one's no different. You kind of feel for the Milanese maker here. People want cars like this. And if BMW, Jaguar and Porsche can all make them, Alfa needs to as well. We're impressed by the fact that in meeting this demand, this Italian maker has resisted the temptation to merely copy its rivals. And we're encouraged by the way that so many of the company's brand values have survived the transition into the crossover class. It really is an Alfa first and an SUV second. We like it for that. You may well do too.